Okay, so I'm here with Tim Cusick today, and I'm actually really lucky that I caught Tim because I've been trying to get in touch with him for way too long, but Tim's a busy guy. So if there's a silver lining to everything we're going through right now is that I've got Tim here on video. And, the reason I'm doing this is I was trying to think of a lot of people I know have more time right now. A lot of people have less time. So it really depends on your situation. But I wanted to think of people that I could talk to bring value to those athletes who are at home and maybe have more time and are really struggling with the uncertainty right now and everything that's going on because it's hitting everyone in different ways. So Tim and I met at a cycling camp about a decade ago now when I went to speak where Tim was working. I know it's a long time, right? Crazy. Uh,
Yeah.
I went to speak as a sports nutritionist, and then from there, I was lucky that I got to keep working with Tim, and we did several other camps when I used to ride a lot. So we've spent some time riding together, and since then, Tim's really, gosh, gained tons of experience and continues to grow as an amazing coach, and is currently the Training Peaks WKO product manager and the head coach at Velocio Cycling. Now, you also run and operate a Velocio cycling camps, correct?
Yeah, we have a cycling adventures camps all over the world.
Yeah, so that's amazing as well. I've not actually been on one of your camps, but the Mallorca one is certainly calling my name. So hopefully one day. So I thought Tim could bring a lot of value to cyclists out there, whether professionals or local masters cyclists. He's worked with all levels of athletes, but you might recognize Tim's name because he does work with world champions, world-class athletes such as Amber Neben and Rebecca Rush and Emma Grant and probably some others that you're coaching, but I don't know your whole roster. So definitely a lot of high-profile cyclists, but a lot of range of experience with cyclists of all levels. But I want to ask you first, before we get started on some practical maybe tips and even ideas on mindset, like how are you dealing with everything that's happening with COVID-19? How are you managing?
Me personally, or me and my athletes?
Well,
Well,
you personally. Yeah,
yeah, no, I'm doing well. You
that's
know,
good.
um, I think for many of us that are in the world of sports, we're almost like pre-designed to cope with challenge and adversity like this.
Yeah,
We tend to be very adaptive to process and things that are thrown at us last minute. This has been a very challenging year for it to happen. The timing has been uh, emotionally challenging, I guess, to give it a name, because it's an Olympic year.
yeah,
And that really has, for me, not only at a process level of coaching and interacting and work and my own workload, went from what is typically a very busy year, and the Olympic years are clearly, obviously a lot of work in that time frame, to not busy. But also you're dealing with a lot of the emotional aspect of your athletes, and having had a couple of athletes moving towards Olympic teams, suddenly not only are we forced to think that through again, there's a lot of emotional challenge that this has brought about, and how we're going to work through that. And as a coach, you go through it with your athletes. I mean, that reality is there, right?
yeah,
you So for me, it's been an adjustment, a life adjustment. Like you just said, I've been home a lot more. We were just chatting about that, which has been
yeah,
nice. But it's also been uh, a higher amount of stress, and importance of being there for your athletes and helping figure things through, which to me is motivating, actually. So it's been good that way. On a
yeah,
personal level, if I'm not traveling, I'm generally working at home, so it hasn't been that big of a change except for the travel. So
yeah.
we're adapting pretty well, and moving forward like everybody else.
That's good. Now, you are very interested in women's cycling in particular. And can you just give me a little bit of insight? Like, did that happen organically, or like how did that come about? Have you always been interested in the women's side of cycling?
So you want to get me in trouble right away,
No, no, no.
right?
I'm just
So
like
here's the
I was
answer.
thinking about your athletes, and I know that we've spoken.
Yeah.
You're very passionate about it, so and I think it's amazing. I'm grateful.
I just think, I've worked with athletes in years in the past. I work with professional athletes, at both male and female, at the world tour level. And the reality is, I just made decisions to only work with female athletes at this stage because it really is hard to get a fair break. I mean, simply when you look at the disparity in women's cycling, they just don't have the opportunity, the access to information, to data, to mentors, to coaches, to anything. The economics are not there to support it. So I just figured the best way I could do it. I mean, you could get involved in other things, which I do. And you and I remember we actually have tackled some projects together in that area as far as making some protests against better treatment for women and women in cycling. But
Oh yeah.
the reality is, I think it's better to help in a way that we're actually touching, we're actually supporting, we're actually helping at the ground level, at the grassroots approach. So at this point, I only fill my coaching slots with female athletes, and I do so in a way that it makes it affordable for them. And that really is my goal. And I think it helps drive me as a coach because it's a passion, because I want to see that right be wronged. And the best way for me, the way I like to help is kind of by supporting and being there at the grassroots level.
That's amazing. Excellent. Well, thanks for doing that. I'm sure they're all appreciative. And do you have a cap on the number of people that you coach? As in how many
Absolutely.
athletes? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll only do 5 at any given time. For me, because I'm kind of an all-in person, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah.
I can't really do more than 5. I have some other roles and responsibilities, as you kind of announced, that I am in the software side with Training Peaks and WKO, so that consumes some time.
I'm
And I
sure.
found the perfect balance is the maximum of 5 athletes.
Excellent.
After that, I can't keep up. It just keeps me too much running, busy,
Oh, I'm
work, and
sure.
I like to have the time.
And do you also manage other coaches within Velocios then?
Yeah, we have a great group of coaches in the company. So I am kind of the head coach there. So I do a lot of education programs, as you might know, not only within our own company, but for Training Peaks and
Yeah.
And the WKO product. I've got a large webinar tomorrow where there'll be hundreds coaches on, and hopefully
Nice.
learning. We'll be talking about exciting intervals and things like that. So
Yeah.
Uh, I love the educational stuff also, but that combination of things between software, education, and coaching pretty much keeps me full. And since I do want to dedicate my time to the athletes, I cap at 5.
Awesome. Excellent. So I wanted to ask you, so as athletes, like you kind of mentioned at first, as far as dealing with adversity, like it's something that we're used to some degree, right? Like everything doesn't go as planned when a bike race starts. We all know that. But this is a little different because now it's not, there's always a little bit of uncertainty, but obviously this is a big difference. I know the UCI women's schedule, I mean, nothing's happening till August 1st, maybe, right? So we don't even know. Is something happening then? Everything's like a moving target. So since athletes are typically so goal oriented, and whether you're talking at the Olympic level where you probably have one peak, or the local level where maybe you have a bunch of A and B races, it will start like, I think it's best maybe to split these into professional and then maybe more local. And then if there's some overlap, let us know. But how do you stay goal oriented when you're not even certain anymore what your next goal is? If we started with the like professional athlete, is it like micro focused because the macro is so uncertain? Do you just keep fitness, or like how do you even know what to work on?
Yeah. So at the professional athlete level, it's almost more specific. The answer is, or actually, it's more individual. So the challenge at the professional level, it's really about what track they're on. So, to give some live examples, because sometimes that probably helps understand a little better.
Yeah.
One of the athletes I'm working with is Amber Neben. She was looking to make the Olympic team here and, kind of work towards the Olympics, qualify. She was in a pretty good spot to do that. I mean, you don't know until
Yeah.
you get to the selection point, but she was in a pretty good spot to do that. And this interruption has been a challenge because what people don't understand at this level, so let's say you're going towards the Olympics and we now know the Olympics are delayed a year. Um, the reality is we still don't know about qualifying. There is grayness in there. Does it go to a total reset of qualifying? Will there be a certain amount of requirements on whatever the UCI puts out in UCI racing? But we don't know what that is. And the
Yeah.
reality is you don't know if that comes about quickly. I mean, the UCI will announce, August 1 or late May, or I think they're going to respond to some of the pressure to announce earlier, to be honest with you, but let's see. You also have USA Cycling, and where do nationals come in and how does that get fit? That's up in the air. So really, Amber and I spent a lot of time talking about goals, and we've decided to continue to train to be ready to perform very quickly. So we've kind of gone into this forward moving maintenance program, right? I realize that's an oxymoron, but the reality is we don't want to slide back much at all, because you don't know, the schedule could come out tomorrow and 4 weeks away to a national, championship, which could be very important for qualifying for the Olympics. So you need to be able to turn on a dime. So one of the things I think that works in that scenario, and something I would recommend for people to think about, is it's really important that you have a training strategy, right? And when you say training strategy, people think plan immediately in their head. Plan is what you end up putting in paper in neat little boxes in a schedule, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
I think if you have a strategy and that strategy has all the micro steps of what you're trying to accomplish, and you've designed that well, you can look at that strategy. Now, the steps have changed a little, the process has changed a little, right? You need to qualify, you need to be flexible, you need to do this and that, but you can stick with that strategy. And I think that's something that Amber has done really well, and Amber and I have done well together, is we've said, okay, whatever happens here, Amber's a more mature athlete. This is probably her last shot, at it in her mid 40s. Going to the Olympics in your mid 40s is an amazing accomplishment.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so we've decided we're going to stay with the strategy. We've tweaked the process a little bit, right? But we're continuing to grow the strategy and work on some things that we're using the extra time opportunistically to work on some things that might have limited her, but also trying not to create too much fatigue, push a peak, make things harder. And otherwise than that, we're waiting for some announcements in time.
Yeah.
I think, she searched out her own motivation. She just completed a really great charity event, raising money for No Kids Hungry, little online racing. You and I were back and forth about it. It was great. I participated in it. And it was great for her to find motivation that introduced something new to her. We were able to blend that into our process and goals, and it was great. So she took her own training, her own motivational gap here for a little bit, and filled it with some amazing charity work.
Yeah,
So
that was fantastic.
In process adaptation, and she, and we're still on that strategy, and we set tiny little micro goals right now about training, but we're really saying, okay, we're going to look at the next 10 to 14 days, and then we'll see if there's any announcements, and we'll figure it out. Because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
We'll give our strategy umbrella, but what else are you going to do? You have to be flexible and just until the information comes out.
So that makes sense for sure. And now if you're, that's such a huge goal, the Olympics, right? That's, I'm assuming it's not very often you have that one peak for the year, or in qualifying, maybe two peaks. But if you're a masters athlete or more of a local elite, not that I'm bunching those together, but just more local, where you have a lot of races that you're going to participate in, or maybe you're getting ready for what is your A race, which is possibly a huge Grand Fondo. Like that type of athlete might be on like a typical 4-week plan, and, depending how good the coach is, of course, but how do you stay motivated in that scenario? And how do you not burn out on Zwift, right? Like it could be like my thought the other day, I was thinking about this, God, I wonder if people are just doing too much now because of something like Zwift. And not to knock it, I think the platform's fantastic and such an opportunity for people right now. But yeah, if you're not being coached, like, how do you manage that right now? If you've gone that way, maybe you've gone the other way and you're not even riding. Like, what are your thoughts on just that level of athlete and how to stay moving if you're not riding because you've just become really bummed out, or how to put the brakes on if you're Zwift racing 5 days a week?
Well, you're talking about two different things there, but I can answer the question, right? So overall, actually, and it's always been my approach. So some degree, this is, coded by my own rosy colored glasses. I think that athlete should seize this opportunity to improve. I think one of the things you see in local racers and event riders and stuff like that, we tend to think in very short-term blocks, right? You said 4 weeks there and a class
Yeah.
of training, a microcycle, right? And at best, that local athlete and category rider will think in a macro cycle, which tends to be a season, somewhere like 6, 5 to 10 to maybe even 12 months, right? But
Yeah.
we don't think beyond that as the cyclists. I think one of the places that most cyclists who haven't competed maybe at a professional level before or at high level before, they misunderstand or they don't understand how strong having a multi-year plan and working towards something bigger can have and how much it can improve your overall performance. If I was coaching athletes at that level, I don't right now, but if I did, I would be, hey, one, let's get over it, right? First of all, the first thing you got to do is just process it, right? And I think a lot of people
Yeah.
have gotten through that. I mean, this was shock and awe for all of us a little bit, right? It was like, holy
Yeah.
crap, the world's changed. Some people, we all go through like stages, like it's like grief, right? We
Yeah.
deny, we do a little blame, we do a little anger, we go through those phases. I think people are emerging through those phases very well. Again, I think as athletes as a whole, and particularly in this sport where some adversity and suffering are part of it, they deal with that well, right? And now we're moving on. I think then as that athlete sets their goal, they can't focus on things they can't control, right? And the way you can get around that, not getting caught up in the things you can't control, is to do what I call is put your eyes on the horizon. Think bigger picture. You're going to have to believe and see what you're going to see in the sense that, let's say you believe racing is going to be back by August. Okay, let's think about that as your horizon. Maybe you're a little more pessimistic and you're saying it's not going to be back till October or maybe not till 2021.
Yeah.
Fine. Find your place and commit to it, right? There is no perfect answer. I don't know. I can't predict it.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Hence our discussion about UCI and USA cycling. And I'm sure the same thing going on in Canada. No one really knows.
Yeah.
So the reality is, right, find that horizon, find your point. Then what I would recommend, it's funny, right? Because this is somewhat my coaching style, so I can only give it to you stylistically, go for it. I would say move your goals. It's like one of the motivating things for me as a coach. It was John Wooden, an old basketball coach who I'm probably dating myself by using as an example. But the reality is, he really talked about the difference between winning and succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is really a great time for athletes to focus on succeeding. So find that horizon and start thinking about succeeding. What can I do to improve me as a cyclist?
Yeah.
Is it a charity function, right? I just gave that as an example, but is
Yeah.
it something that becomes a challenge? Amber did hers as online racing. She never rides a trainer. She lives in Southern California. It was like,
Yeah. That's true. Right.
the only time. It was totally different for her and she loved it because it really forced her to do something she wasn't comfortable doing, riding a trainer really hard. So find that horizon, find that, succeeding goal for you, then get a strategy in place. Again, be a little cautious about a plan. It's not all going to go to your plan. I'm going to tell you right now, we don't know what's going to be happening here. But your strategy is, my advice to you is just go big. Screw it, right? Look, you got to take care of your whole body health. There's some other aspects you'd be better suited to talk about. So would I. I think you got to be careful of training too much and reducing your immunity, even though exercise is really good for your immunity. It takes a whole lot of training to really break down your immunity, but being careful with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I would push it. I would go for that big success. Is it a 1 hour? If you train with power, maybe it's a power number. I want to be able to do 300 watts for an hour. Maybe it's a big challenge. Like I want to do a solo century in 5.5 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours. Find your thing and just start moving towards it. But that thing needs to support your horizon. It's got to be something that helps you build towards when you see things coming back. There's supportive steps. It's a progression or a progressive series of supportive steps that helps you get there.
Yeah.
The challenge of motivation, though, right? And this is one of the things I say always as a coach that shocks people when I say what I'm about to say. Coaches cannot motivate athletes. You really can't, right? And when I say that, people are like, holy, what do you mean? That's a coach's job. You're rah-rah on motivation.
Yeah.
Not really. At the end of the day, no coach is ever going to convince you to get off the couch and ride your bike or to do that one extra interval. That comes from the rider. That comes from the athlete. You have to find your self-motivation first. A great coach, a good coach, helps you bring that motivation out, helps mature it, helps give you an environment of performance and training and success recognition that really juices it, right? That really inflates it. That really, I can't think of the right, amplifies. There's the
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
amplifies it. But it's got to start with the athlete.
Yeah.
I would look at those three core things if I was that person. And the way to find your motivation is challenge yourself to do something big horizon. It could be take these 4 weeks. Maybe you have the opportunity to safely challenge or safely train, I should say,
Yeah.
a bigger challenge, like maybe a bigger month. Don't go crazy. Don't overtrain. Don't break down your immune system. So I got to be cautious what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But challenge yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because if I've been against falling into the maintenance mode, right?
Okay.
We fall into the maintenance mode and you'll lose motivation in a couple of weeks. I guarantee it. You're
Yeah.
just going to stop motivating. Find your self-motivation. Challenge to do something that is succeeding. You don't have to win, just succeed.
Yeah.
Succeeding is, doing something you've never done before. Succeeding is putting effort in at a level you've never put in, trying hard, whether you win or not, right?
And the
So
beauty is
adapt that type of a mentality.
like maybe it's an opportunity to, some people are afraid to blow in a race. Like maybe you need to like go for that just in your training, and that could be a test in itself. Like go harder than you're used to.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen when you're not in a race? I have a question about someone who does. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to ask, if you are stuck inside on the trainer, are there any pros to that? Like, is there something you can benefit from that maybe you typically wouldn't benefit from outside, just the way most people are riding when they're in a group or whatnot?
Yeah, everything when we think about training, we think about all these modalities, right? On a trainer, on the road, on a mountain bike, on a road bike, whatever. Everything is a tool, and it really becomes how you use the tool. If you use it incorrectly, it probably won't work as designed, right? If you use it correctly, it'll work as designed.
Yeah.
Indoor training has a fair amount of benefits. It really does. And I think actually in some circles gets a bad rap. People are too quick to shut it down as an effective system for training. For me, indoor training really allows for the ability to, well, one, you know what, and it's kind of funny. One of the things I've seen here, I have to say this overall, back to your motivation, go back to Amber's example. If I would have told her 2 months ago, we're going to do, a 3-day stage race online, she'd be like, what? No way. But it actually motivated her. And she was like, wow, this is cool. Because some of it was just change. It was different. So for those of us who don't indoor train or don't indoor race or do these elements, you certainly get into exposure to something new and have fun.
Yeah.
But then you get into the kind of classic benefits, right? Sorry, just turning something on my computer. You get into the classic benefits of you have specificity, right? So the trainer, as we all know, brings high specificity. You're always pedaling, you don't coast, you have ultimate control of an effort, an interval, a workout, whatever, and you can deliver total on par performance.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 to 10 years ago, I would have even questioned that specificity because of the hardware not being able to deliver a reasonably decent, for simple terms, a pedaling experience.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have smart trainers with heavy flywheel, whether they're real flywheels or magnetic flywheels. They do a very good job of getting very close to road feel and to road and not overly negatively affecting your pedal stroke.
Yeah.
So you've kind of had the situation where you can go and do legitimately good hard intervals on a trainer and capture all the specificity that you might not be able to go outside. I think indoor training, and reason why you actually talked about racing and why it's kind of catches you up And
Yeah,
it's something I was just saying about motivation. It's really easy to track micro improvement, isn't it?
that's true. Yeah, it's like
I did a
weighted.
couple more watts. I did 2 times 20 3 days ago at 250 watts. Now I just did it at 255. And you're able to track because it's so controlled,
That's true.
you change. And that motivates, right? That's back to that process of driving towards some succession. You're seeing improvement. I think that is part of it. Um, I also think online there's a lower mental stress. For me, like I train both. I'm a little more indoors here. We can get outside and ride and stuff like that. But even with that, I have to train a little more inside. It's easy to just pull on an old pair of shorts, a wicking t-shirt and jump on your trainer and ride, right? You don't have to
Yeah,
get all the
yeah,
clothes on. You don't have the bike ready and all that. So it's still pretty cold here. So, you're not thinking about 2 layers or 3 layers in your ride.
yeah.
So it does take mental stress
Hmm.
away during a time now that is very stressful, right?
Yeah,
The
for
last thing
sure.
I want to do is have to chew up more time picking out clothes and getting outside and keeping multiple bikes running. So that's,
Well, that can take a half an hour itself, right?
yeah, exactly, right? So
Yeah,
it's like, I just run, jump on the trainer. It's good, it's clean, and it's easy. So
yeah,
I think there's those benefits overall. I mean, I think there's some pitfalls and things like that, but there are a fair amount of benefits.
yeah. Now, I know you do a lot of work with Amber in particular for time trialing. There's a lot of triathletes out there and time trialists, and I realize the time trialists have a much more aggressive TT bike position, but nevertheless, the triathletes also probably riding a lot of time trial position. Would you be indoors recommending a lot of TT position if that's something you're specializing in, like actually being on that bike in particular versus your road bike?
Absolutely. And that goes back to the idea of specificity, right? Because you can use, and one of the things I think is a mistake a lot of people make in their indoor training, you don't maximize that controlled environment. Meaning you are fixed to a trainer, right? You have that bike with no change generally a day in and day out. Meaning you can change your bikes, but the bike you're actually
Yeah,
using on the trainer is it's not, you're not having to deal with any outside factors. You're just riding that bike. It's an excellent time for time trialists and um, triathletes to focus on things like position, CDA in the sense if like maybe you've been in a wind tunnel or you've tested through some of the kind of newer devices that are coming out and you need to be a little lower but you haven't achieved that. This might be a time to incrementally work on things like that. I'll give you a secret one why and I just see this a fair amount indoors. Um, we do indoor training programs also. We've had some programs and it's been an excellent learning experience to find out what people don't know.
okay.
So, indoors is a great time to work on the basics like breathing.
Mhm.
How many people you're stuck on a trainer, right? And you're going hard or you're doing an effort or you're doing whatever. What better time is there to work on your deep breathing, your diaphragm breathing, things like that? You don't take advantage of things like that as much on the road because you're dealing with, you know, a, a stop sign, a couple of turns. There's debris in the street. On your
Yeah,
trainer, you can shut off everything else, right? Just totally focus. Okay, I'm going to focus on my deep breathing techniques and begin to build breathing intervals. What
yeah.
about relaxation? What about mental focus?
Hmm.
Can you use that time? And there's all types of different mental side of I don't want to call them tricks but yes, they're tricks, right? How
Yeah,
you
yeah.
focus and work through problems. It's a
Hmm.
great time to build all that in a trainer because it's controlled.
Yeah,
But yet we tend to get on a trainer and just bang away. But this goes back to the goals part, right? I mean, every
yeah.
time Amber's on a goal, I mean, she's going to kill me for, but we videotaped her in the race breathing.
Okay.
So, and we noticed that her breathing was more shallow. If you ever see pictures of Amber time trialing, she's an amazing breather and a belly breather. I mean, she basically, if we
I
cut her
can
in half,
see like her rib cage
yeah,
even is
she's amazing, right?
phenomenal. It's
Yep.
incredible.
But it took some work for her to adapt that inside. And we were
Okay.
breathing faster and and we just said, all right, well, it's a good opportunity. She did it. She was looking for the improvement. And the reality is some of it is heat and all the other things you have to deal with inside. But
Yeah.
we used the time to learn. That translates really well to that, local cyclist category racer, a person looking to do a century, use that trainer time. It's not just about pedaling a bike. right?
Yeah.
As you know, as a former pro, it's all of these, you got to put it all together if you really want success.
Hmm.
So that should be part of your motivation package, right? If you're doing time inside, what else am I going to work on? I'm going to begin to execute breathing intervals. I'm going to begin to execute relaxation intervals, or maybe take on a mental focus program during that time frame. Maximize the time. That should be part of the motivation.
Yeah, like even imagine like if someone wanted to imagine an interval is them leading out a teammate, right? Like you can even go there and like visualize, like what am I doing right now? Finishing the Oak Glen in Redlands, or I always found those type of visuals good on the trainer when you're just
Yes,
staring at the wall. Um, so do you think it's, I know some people have the mentality sometimes. I think it's an unfortunate mentality because I think coaches are very valuable. But when they get injured, obviously this is not at the professional level, more at the local level. Oh, I'm injured. I'm not, going to be doing as much. Or, we have this pandemic. I don't know what I'm doing next. Is it a good time to hire a coach?
wow, that's a great question.
If
Um,
you're in the financial position and
yeah,
you have this uncertainty, like could that extra structure be a good thing right now?
absolutely. You said the key. My hesitation really was everybody's individual financial scenario, right? And that's challenging.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
this is an excellent window if you have that ability to learn. And I think that's the opportunity that all cyclists right now are presented with. Um, whether it's that professional cyclist that I'm talking about, if it's a world champion like Amber or a world champion like Rebecca, they're learning right now. They're doing stuff to improve things that they hadn't been doing before. And they're doing so in guidance with their coach,
I
right?
think that's really great what you just said. Like a world champion, they're still learning. Like that's fantastic, right? There's
Correct.
always something to improve, even at the very top.
I couldn't agree more. And it should never stop. And one of the opportunities we should use this time frame for, if we and everybody can learn, right? And
Hmm.
whether that's from a coach, it's an excellent time to start that and get the process moving forward. There's a lot of learning information that's out there,
Hmm.
books, webinars, interviews, right?
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
it's time to invest in you because we're going to come out. This is going to get better, right? And we're
yeah,
going to be
exactly.
racing our bikes and we're going to be throwing it down like, all the things that we want to get done.
Yeah,
Use time wisely, and learning is such a big event right now. So I would look to make that decision. And
yeah,
if you can't or it's not on your horizon, learn in other ways, find other resources.
absolutely. I just have one more question. You said the word heat, and I couldn't ignore it because Tokyo, even though it's been postponed for a year. So since you're still acting as if, obviously that is legitimately postponed, but heat, like as far as the heat in the summer, I know you've done a lot of acclimatization with your athletes. Do you have any recommendations on, when those scorching 80, 90-degree days come, like things that you've done with Amber or Rebecca? Well, actually, Rebecca just did the Iditarod, so she was going the opposite way. But
Yeah.
yeah, because if you're inside, even, I mean, it's not going to be 90 degrees, but you still have the element of, you need a fan on you, and those types of factors. Any thoughts on heat training in particular?
In general, heat training is an advanced way, and it's important that I say advanced because be careful of people streaming off and going into heat training because
Yeah.
it's a very high cost to the system. So when done wrong, you actually could reduce your performance. When done correctly, heat training can be as effective as altitude training in general. It really depends on everybody responds individually. Like not everybody responds exactly the same to heat training, just like altitude training. Not everybody
Hmm.
responds the same to altitude training. There are certain underlying physiological considerations before you move into both of those. And this will be one that, is right up more your alley. Their diet needs to be correct. They need to have enough minerals and specific minerals in their system if you want it to be effective, because you're going to be looking to improve red blood cell. And people always say hematocrit, but you're really looking for hemoglobin. And your body needs to be able to produce that in response, right? If those things are in alignment, you go into heat training. Heat training can be a significant performance improver when managed well. Most of us actually go through it in the summer naturally anyway. The
Yes.
summer comes up for the first week, suddenly gets hot, and you're just like, wow, I feel really bad every day. Well, that's because your body isn't adapting. Most of us will heat adapt in 7 to 12 days, 7 to 14 days.
Yeah.
And then you're just maintaining that adaptation. And as you train in the heat, you're going to be a little faster. I mean, assuming you're, again, taking care of the underlying engine,
Yeah.
got the right nutrition, and you need to be iron rich and B rich and things like that, particularly iron in that sense. The research has proven there's some pretty clear baselines that if you don't have enough iron, you won't respond. And don't go out and take a bunch of iron. Everybody fears iron poisoning. It's really hard to poison yourself with iron, but you could do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody who's ever iron poisoned themselves, but don't go out and take a ton of iron because I just said it.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's highly effective. Indoor training is one way to mimic it, but it goes beyond just riding in the heat, and that's where it gets tricky. When you think about the adaptation, it's the body's cooling system. When you're hot, and this is an oversimplification, but when you're hot, you're bringing blood to the skin level, right, for cooling. And that's taking blood out of the system that you want to propel the bike down the road. Heat adaptation gives you better adaptation to the heat. You don't need as much blood to do that. Sweat rates are super important in that. So there also is an element of hydration management, which I'm not going to say in a public webinar because then people will take iron and stop drinking. And Ann will kill me in a couple of months.
It's better than disinfectant.
Yes. Okay.
I think you make a good point though for the local rider. Like if it's super hot out and you're out there all the time, you're right. You're adapting, right?
Yep.
It's a little different than if you're somewhere cool and you're headed to Tokyo. And it's going to be a shock to the system where you're doing it on purpose now.
Absolutely. And that's when you look at, so when Amber last won Worlds was in Doha, and we definitely had a very extensive acclimation, not only leading in, because the change was so great, right? Even her in Southern California, 85, 90 in the summer, Doha on race day, I think was 107 degrees.
Wow.
That's just a game changer.
That's extreme.
So, what she went through to heat adapt was amazing.
Yeah.
But we walked in there and the heat did not affect her. I mean, it affected everybody, don't get me wrong, but generally it probably affected her the least.
Yeah.
And we had some dramatically different protocols for dealing. We had a lot of similar protocols, but we had some unique ones also that we were gearing up to do in Tokyo, even though Tokyo is a lot more humid. The humidity in Tokyo is the bigger challenge.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
But obviously everything's sitting on hold right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have to deal with that change, as you said. That's the bigger challenge. If you're in it all the time, you are probably acclimatized to it.
Yeah.
It's the change that will get you if you're not ready.
For sure. So I kind of want to wrap up with the question about, I guess, kind of what's one of your take-home messages right now as far as like having the right mindset to get through this, whether it's, it's definitely going to be another month or 2 or 5. And, I really loved what you said about like making a challenge for yourself. I think that's huge. Even for myself, I'm injured, but if I could ride again, I think I'd just be bored because I don't race anymore unless I had many challenges. But just, I guess, your main take home on how to think about what you want right now and just your mindset to get through this as an athlete who's just typically so motivated by the next goal and the next goal and the next goal, and they're just not the same right now.
It's a good question. It's funny. Again, I'll answer it with an example, right? Because I think it always helps when you hear real athletes going through real scenarios.
Absolutely.
So when this hit, Rebecca Rausch was getting ready for the DK 350. Which he, obviously as a 7-time world champion and having won Leadville, what was it, 4 or 5 times and all those things.
Amazing.
The DK is still out there as a big goal for her. She did it last year and was really looking forward to it this year. Well, obviously this came along and that we were on that training direction, right? And then obviously she had some other events beyond that. And she's not as rigid in her system as Amber is. Amber has to qualify and get to the Olympics and all this. She has a very step-by-step process. I was talking to Rebecca and it was great. And you just see the quality of these athletes. And this is quality all of us have. It's not just like this isn't something, it's part of what makes them a great pro, but it's because they have it and they trust it and they rely on this instinct that we all have. Maybe the everyday cyclist, they get too wrapped up into it. These guys have been big dreamers, big goal setters for a long time. We're on a call and she said something that was really cool. She's like, well, we need to design my next adventure. Like that was her term, right?
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Okay. Yeah, isn't it? It was like, and it was that reset, right? It's that immediate reset. Oh, that goal's out of the way. I've lived through this before. I've been injured. I've had things go wrong. I'm resetting. And for her, it wasn't kind of the tight line of process for Amber. So but she needed that adventure. It was part of her motivation set. It was part of what made her tick. And we started saying, okay, well, if we don't have one, let's make one. Well, how do we make one, right?
I love it.
We actually came up with this great idea called the Giddy Up Challenge.
Yeah, I've seen this on Instagram. Yeah.
Cool. And she's sharing it with people and she's raising money for charity. Again.
Yeah. Tell us what it is.
So the Giddy Up Challenge is, she wanted a challenge. She needed something big.
Yeah.
So she decided to do a broadcast gravel Everest attempt. So she runs her Rebecca's Private Idaho gravel event. That's in September. It's questionable. We don't know whether it'll happen or not. So she's like, you know what I want to do? I'm going to take the big climb and I'm going to Everest on it, on a gravel bike. I mean, Everesting is hard enough. Doing it on a gravel bike is even harder.
Yeah.
Doing it on gravel is even harder yet, right?
Yeah.
So she wanted to make it hard. And then when we started talking about like, okay, well, this is the challenge. And this is where, like Amber, raising money for charity and all of my athletes right now are raising money for charity. I love to see professional athletes pitch in and make a better world. It's such awesome people.
Yeah.
But Rebecca is, having a book and a movie out there and stuff like that. She's got more audience. She said, let's make it big. And she set a goal of raising $50,000. Which in cycling is a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Anybody can join the Giddy Up Challenge. All of the proceeds go towards charity. You can read on her website. Just look up Rebecca Rausch Giddy Up Challenge.
Nice.
They have a full Everest, but then instead of making like a half Everest or a quarter Everest, they're using the climb. This what they call baked potato or the potato. There's different levels. You'll see when you go there. Of their climb. And on Memorial Day weekend, everybody is going to do some level of their challenge, whether they take on the Everest. And believe it or not, I might go for the Everest.
This is awesome. I love this idea that it's all on one day.
And it's all one day, right? And then all these people all over the world, because you're doing it in your home, right? Your hometown, your climb, or your trainer, if you can't be outside by then, that could be the reality, right? Everybody around the world are going to be participating in this Giddy Up Challenge and sharing files through technology, right? It's going to all be loaded to a Strava group. You're going to be able to see everybody else's, what they did they Everest, did they make it?
Yeah.
They're going to live stream portions of it from Rebecca. There are numerous professional other athletes doing it along. So I have a feeling you'll get to see and interact social media with all types of different people.
Nice.
She found her next adventure, right? So that's grandiose. And she has the ability to go out and do something like that and set an audacious goal, like raise $50,000 and do an Everest. She's never done it.
Yeah.
The Queen of Pain has never done an Everest.
Yeah.
So we need to bring some more pain, right?
She's only done these other incredible
events. Yeah, she survived. I mean, she just came out of the ITI, the Iditarod, right? 7 days of sub-freezing, 80 mile an hour wind, whatever. This should be easy enough. But it's going to challenge her. She's going to have to work pretty hard.
Yeah.
I think that should be trickled down. People like Amber, people like Rebecca. I had Emma Grant did the Everest. She just did an Everest challenge for No Kids Hungry.
Tucson,
and crushed it.
Yeah.
And I did it in right around under 15 hours, which is not easy. and there's great examples like that. Everyday riders, find that, right? Find your challenge, participate in one, make your own, find your or next adventure, or design your next adventure. You can steal it from Rebecca. I'm sure she'll share,
Yeah.
right? Find it, remotivate yourself. You can't control the environment going around. You can only control what you're going to do within it.
Yeah.
Find something like that. That's your goal. Find something a challenge you've never done. With Rebecca, we had to look at things she hadn't done, which was a short list, of accomplishments. It wasn't easy. And it was Emma Grant out there, Everesting, that was part of the inspiration.
Oh,
And
nice.
I haven't done that. And it's like, okay, well, let's take on that. And she
Yeah.
wanted something new. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Let that trickle down, engage in the same spirit, control what you can control. Once you focus on controlling what you can control and you get control of that, we'll feel better. We'll start moving forward. We'll be able to put accomplishments kind of in a row and start going forward. And I think that is a great summary of the process for world champions, everyday riders like me, down to people even just starting out. It's a great way to engage.
Yeah. And I think I love this whole make your own adventure, right? Because even within like a community, like there's so many groups within a community. If you don't do it alone, I think if I was still able to, I'm just injured, but if I was riding or racing, I could totally see even within 6 people, you could be like, okay, let's do this. And just knowing those other 6 people are going to do it, whether you're with them or not, is like, okay, I have to put that file down. And I need to giddy up and show up for this thing. So I think, having other people involved might help. But you're right, it doesn't have to be massive, right? It can be an hour of power. I mean, that's a huge challenge. What's your hour of power? Like, that would be amazing. Well, that's great. I really appreciate you taking the time. I mean, I'm sure people will gain some valuable insights, and especially the mindset. What I really love is seeing the professionals that you do coach, like they're just, and like you said, yeah, for sure, it's a stressful time. Not everyone's just going to bounce back, and everyone's got a very different scenario. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. But whatever scenario you do have, like, to find a little silver lining, make a little challenge, and hopefully still find some goals to keep you motivated. But I appreciate you taking the time and adding the value, sharing your insights. And anything else you want to add? Or
No worries. I appreciate you taking the time to have me on. It was great.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully I'll see you out there on the road at some point again in the future. We do have a showdown that we need to have.
You just want to tell the world how you dropped me, don't you?
Yeah, it's a long time ago. All right. Thanks so much, Tim. I appreciate your time.
You, Thank you.
Oh, actually, I have one more question. Where can we find you online?
Oh, wow. You can look me up through trainingpeaks.com, right? I am a coach on Training Peaks in the sense, and I am the Training Peaks WKO product leader.
Yeah.
Our coaching site is velociouscyclingadventures.com. That's all our upcoming camps. Obviously, those have been a little postponed. But that's our coaching services and the coaches that we work with and stuff like that. Everything is there.
Nice. And are you on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram?
All the above. You can find me. I'm not always the most social person because I do a lot of this, and it's hard to keep up with social media and do educational webinars and interaction. But I am through all those. People can feel free to friend me and chat. I will get back to you eventually, but I'm not always the best at the social side.
Okay, perfect. So I'll post those links. And thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Ann.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.